Hello, Fringers. This SnugglePop Baby Blanket is one of those projects that just feels special from the start. It's soft, snuggly, and perfect for little cuddles, the kind of blanket new parents reach for again and again. With my breakaway crochet techniques, you'll work all the squares in the blanket in one continuous flow, joining them as you go with a very solid, clean finish. This means zero sewing and no magic circle fuss. It's fast, satisfying, and makes the perfect baby shower gift. Once you get the rhythm of my breakaway crochet techniques, this blanket works up quickly, and along the way you'll pick up some clever methods that you won't find in a standard pattern. So stick around because I'm going to walk you through these techniques step by step. And trust me, once you learn them, you'll want to use them on every motif project from now on. So let's have a closer look at the square that will be repeated throughout the entire blanket. This square is basically a 5-round solid granny square with popcorns added in. And most of this should be quite familiar to you. So if you've made a solid granny square before and you've done popcorns, then there's nothing new there. What is different is how we start each square in the middle here, and the basic techniques for how we transition between one row to the next, but also the special stitches used to join as we go. So let's get started with the very first square. So as I've said before, we will be starting each square in a totally brand new way that you've never done before. All right, and the first thing we do as we start each new square is to put a stitch marker into the working loop on the hook. In this case, because it's the first square, that will be the slip knot. Next, make 6 yarn overs. And then make a floating ring. To make the floating ring, do another yarn over. Kind of secure it with a finger on the top so that things don't rotate around the hook. And then pinch the yarn very close to the hook, as close as you can. Make another yarn over and pinch this new thread along with what you're already pinching. So 2 pinched loops. Do another yarn over, pull through just those 2 loops you're pinching, and these 2 loops are the floating ring. They replace magic rings or chain 4 slip stitch rings, and this is where we will be working all the stitches for round 1. Okay, so now that floating ring is done, the actual first stitch of round 1 we're going to take care of right now too. That first stitch is a double crochet, and we're going to use some of these loops that are already on the hook to complete that double crochet. So the next step is just to do yarn around, pull through 2, yarn around, pull through 2. So technically in breakaway crochet, this is a floating double crochet, but because we've got extra loops on the hook, we've just done it in a kind of a different way this time. Okay, so let's carry on by getting rid of these extra loops that we are actually not going to use on the first round. So take off all the yarn overs and the marked loop, get the working loop back on the hook, and we're good to go. Okay, so done our first double crochet. We need 2 more, and as you can see, this floating ring kind of got a little bit twisted, but that's all right. As long as you can find those 2 loops to go through, you're good to go. There we go. We've pulled up our yarn and complete that double crochet as usual. And now that we've gone into the floating ring, we've kind of stabilized it, and it will be easy to see from now on. Do another double crochet. Makes 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then continue around doing 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 more times. There we go. So we should have 4 groups that contain 3 double crochets with a chain 1 between each group. End this round with a single crochet into the first double crochet. That stands for a chain 1 space. Okay, so there's round 1 done. Now, to jump up to round 2, if you were doing this in a traditional way, this would be the point where you would do probably chain 3 here to work a double crochet as the first stitch, but we're going to do things differently. All right, we're going to use the slack yarn, as I call it. It's this yarn that we use for all those yarn overs in the beginning. We're going to use that to make 2 yarn overs behind the working loop on the hook. So just bring it to the front, the back, around the front, the back. There's 2 yarn overs, and that sets us up for our first double crochet of round 2. So all that's left now is just to pull through 2, pull through 2. All right, so we only used enough slack yarn for those yarn overs to make this stitch. We've got plenty left for the following rounds. Okay, so there is our first stitch of round 2, and I call that process a load double crochet. So when you see load double crochet, that's what you do, what I've just done there. All right, we continue the round. The next stitch is a popcorn, and I like to actually work that into that single crochet we did to close the previous round as the first stitch of this round. It can be a little bit stubborn. That's just my way of counting the next stitch. You might have your own way, so you do you. All right, so the popcorns for this project, I'm only using 4 double crochets into the same stitch. Pull back and close up that popcorn. Give it a good tug so that it pops. Okay, so far we have a double crochet, which was actually the load crochet, double crochet, popcorn. The next stitch is a double crochet. In the next stitch, work another popcorn. And then a double crochet into the chain 1 space. All right, so that double crochet is the first stitch of each corner. In each corner, we'll be doing chain 2 and another double crochet. So you can think of it that way. In each corner, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, continue with popcorn, double crochet, popcorn. So just doing the last double crochet in that next space. So you should have 8 popcorns with a double crochet between each pair, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in each corner. Now to finish this last corner, instead of chain 2, do chain 1 and then a single crochet into the next stitch, which is kind of hard to find because of the way we started this round. So what I'm doing is I take that slack yarn and there's a loop just behind there. That's where I'm going in with a single crochet. So that counts as a chain 2 space, and that's the round finished. Alright, for round 3, again, we start with a load double crochet. So let's use a little bit more of our slack yarn to make 2 more yarn overs. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Still got more yarn here for the next couple of rounds. Okay, so the sequence for this round is we've done 1 double crochet, do another one in the same space, and we've got a double crochet over the next 5 stitches. Alright, and then in the corners we do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Okay, so there's your sequence. 2 double crochet, 2 chain, 2 double crochet in the corner, 5 double crochets along the 5 stitches on each side. And on the last space or corner, let's end this round again with chain 1 and a single crochet into the next stitch. That counts as a chain 2 space. So just to check your work, you should have 9 double crochets on each edge with 2 chains in each corner. Alright, round 4. You guessed it, we've got another load double crochet to start this round. Oops. Another double crochet in the same space. We do a double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. Popcorn in the next stitch. Double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. And in the corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. And in the last corner, just 2 more double crochets, chain 1 and single crochet into the next stitch. Okay, so let's pause here just a sec, just to check your work on this last round. You should have 13 stitches, including the popcorn, on each edge with chain 2 in each corner. Alright, so these are the first 4 rounds, and as I said before, these 4 rounds are abbreviated as WFRS, work first rounds. So for every square you begin, it will start in exactly the same way. But for now, let's continue with round 5. Now, let me just turn this around because that was technically where we started. Okay, so round 5, we only work round 5 to the breakaway point on foundation rows. In this case, we're just going to work this side and this one before we go on to the next. So when we get to this corner here, that is the breakaway point. All right, so to start round 5, we've got a slightly different way of making that first double crochet on round 5, because instead of using all the yarn overs, we're going to use our loop that we have marked. All right, so I like to go ahead and take that stitch marker off because it gets in the way. Let's put the hook through that stitch marker. Use that slack yarn to make a yarn over, and then put the hook back onto the working loop and finish off that double crochet by pulling through 2 loops twice. All right, there is our restore double crochet. So continue. This round is fairly easy. We're only doing double crochet in each stitch, but let's start off with another double crochet in the same space. Double crochet in each of the next 13 stitches. The corners are the same as last round with 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, and just repeating this pattern just for the first 2 sides. And at the end of the second side in that corner or chain 2 space there, we only need 2 double crochets, and that is our breakaway point. All right, so we should have 17 stitches along the side with 2 chains in the corners, another 17 stitches along here, and stopping at that chain 2 space. There's our breakaway point. All right, so we've stopped there because now is the time to move on to the next square, and it will slot in just next door here. Again, we will begin this square just like we did those first 4 rounds of this one. All right, so just working the first 4 rounds, and at the end of the 4th round, that's where we start joining up. Okay, so things are slightly different in terms of how things will look when the stitch marker goes in. We just remember to put that stitch marker into the working loop to start before we start the next square. You do the 6 yarn overs and the floating ring, biseau, so on, and work those first 4 rounds. So I'm not going to repeat that right now, but I'll go ahead and work those first 4 rounds and show you how we do the connecting seam. And there we are, the first 4 rounds finished. And now let's start round 5. More than likely you would be holding things like this. Okay, so this is probably how you would be, how you would just been holding things. Let me get this sorted here. All right, so you've just come along here and you've probably got all this flopping around over here. All right, so let's get that restore double crochet done now. Let's start with taking that off, and I'm taking the hook off, putting that marked stitch back on, do the yarn over, and come back to the working loop. Finish off with pull through 2 twice. There we go. So that is now our first stitch of round 5. And now let's do our grab stitches. A grab stitch is a stitch we will make. So we're going to be working along this edge, And while we are making the stitches on this edge, we will simultaneously be joining to this edge, all right? So let's kind of get sorted as to how you will probably be holding your work. This is the square we're working on. This is the one we're connecting up to, all right? And this is where we're going to be joining up. So I think that's half the battle, is just getting oriented. Okay, so that first, this restore double crochet is already joined up, so we don't have to worry about connecting it to the other square. But the rest of the stitches we're making on this edge, we do. So to start this process off, look at the square we are going to be joining to, and these will be the stitches that are behind the hook. Okay. You want to count 1, 2, 3, back to that third stitch behind the hook. And you're going to dip the hook down and just grab the back loop of that stitch and come back up. So we've got kind of 2 loops on the hook, but we're going to count that as 1 as we make this stitch. Okay, so now that we've grabbed, we come back to our working square and we make a double crochet. All right, go over, and the thing we need to pay attention on this square is where the hook is going into. In this case, it's in that chain 2 space. Bring up a loop, pull through 2, and then pull through everything. And that is a grab double crochet. So with these grab stitches, again, it's important you start off, well, where's the next stitch that will be joined? In this case, from now on, it's always going to be just the next stitch behind the hook. So just grab that next stitch, grab the back loop, come back to the square you're working on, and figure out where the next stitch is. In this case, it's going to be in the next stitch. Yarn over, go through the stitch, pull through 2, pull through everything. And that is starting to join things up. It's hard to see right now. Let me do this a couple more times. Just go through the back loop of the next stitch behind the hook, yarn over, go into the next stitch on our working square, pull through 2, pull through 2. Alright, so it might be a bit tricky in the beginning, but you get into a rhythm, and I like, instead of going through with the hook facing that way, it's easier to kind of back into it. There we go. And this round is fairly easy. It's nothing but double crochets, but in this case grab double crochets on this edge. There you go. Just a couple more. Once you get the hang of it, it flows along, and it is much better than having to sew these squares together and deal with all those yarn tails. No, I'd rather learn this technique than having to sew things together. All right, let's kind of take a break here. You can see how that kind of makes that sort of braided seam. Just turn things, oops. I'll just turn things around, orienting the order things. So here was our first square. Here's the one we're working on. All right, and we'll just continue with our grab stitches, and the corner is just slightly different. So I'll go ahead and work until I get to those chain stitches in the corner. And it's probably going to be turned around this way as you're working on things. You've got the first square on the right, the one you're working on the left. Okay, so I've reached the corner, but I've still got two more of the double crochets to join in that belong in the corner. So again, just figure out where the next stitch is to grab into. That's just that next stitch. And we're working this one into that chain 2 space. And the same again. Thinking about where we're grabbing into and where we work into. Okay, so that's all the double crochets along that edge, but we've got a chain 2 space and we need to grab just one of the chains from this space to join into this one. So we're going to find that first chain. Sometimes it's a little bit distorted. It can be a little bit hard to go into, but we do the same thing. We find that next stitch behind the hook, go into the back loop. Take your time on this because it can be a little bit stubborn. There we go. And just pull through, and that makes a grab chain. Alright, so let's finish this corner now with chain 1, 2 double crochet in the same space. And just double crochets over the next 13 stitches. And our 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in the corner. And we're just going to work along this side up to the chain 2 space, just ending with 2 double crochets into that space there. Okay, so after those 2 double crochets, that's our breakaway point reached again. Here's the square we've just done. Here's our first square. You can see our nice lovely seam going along here. Okay, so in your project you would be adding more squares along this foundation row. In other words, you would just add another one here and here and here and so on, and all these new squares are added exactly the same way you've done to this one here. Alright, so just keep going. The pattern says to make 6 along this row all together, or make it longer or wider if you want. That's okay. But in any case, when you get to the last square of your foundation row, you've got to end it just like this. And for this sample, I've come to the end of the row. I'm not going to go on and make a lot of extra squares because I've just demonstrated everything you need to know to finish the row. So now that we are in at the end of the first foundation row, it's time to come back now. And as you can see, we've got the top edge here is not finished. Each square has an unfinished side to it. I'm going to just continue working where you left off, finish up the square, and then there's something special to do in this place where they join, and then work to just that first space on the first square. All right, it's pretty much business as usual for this. I mean, it's the first square of the row going this way. It's the last one we worked on the foundation row. All right, so just continue. We've got 2 more chains, 2 more double crochet in this corner. Work across all the 13 double crochets and put the 2 double crochets in this corner. Okay, so we are at the last corner of this square, and to complete the corner, here's where we're going to do something special, which kind of helps one corner blend into the next. Okay, so continue with a chain 1, and instead of another chain 2, we're actually going to single crochet through this seam. Alright, and what I like to do is find this little loop here, go through that, and then there's another one kind of just behind it. So just go through those 2 little loops, draw up a loop, and finish a single crochet. Alright, so that's finished this corner, but at the same time it started the last corner on this edge. Alright, so since that single crochet is starting as this time first stitch of this corner, just do 1 more chain and then 2 double crochets in this corner, and just carry on as normal across the square until you get, again, since this is the first square of the row, you're going to only end with 2 double crochets in this chain 2 space. Here we go. There's our return row finished. Now we are ready to go upstairs and add another row of squares. And really nothing's much different about this new square from these squares, other than the join is kind of going across, the direction of the join is just different. But as far as technique and what you will be doing, this square is made in exactly the same way as these ones here. Alright, so I'll go ahead and get this square out of the road. There we go, and just a reminder, doing these grab stitches, when we get to the corner we've got 2 grab double crochets, 1 grab chain, and then just to do this plain side, it was 1 chain, 2 double crochet into that chain 2 space, coming up along and ending with 2 double crochets in that last chain 2 space here. Alright, so this here, this square, is how all the first squares of each new row will be worked. So the first square is always got its special instructions. It only needs to go along 2 sides when you get to round 5. And moving along for the rest of the squares along this row, because we are now joining to this square, the row below, we've got 2 joins. So we've got a join on this side and a join on this side, and then come back up here before we go on to the next one. Okay, so again, everything is the same, but I might just pause. I'm going to go ahead and work this square, and I'm going to come along until I get to this intersection there, because there's just one more special little step that I add in there that I really probably should show you, and then we'll finish off this little sample. Alright, so here I've gone ahead and I've joined this whole side here. I've ended with that grab chain that goes at the end of this side. And now we need to turn the corner, and there's just a little extra step here I'd like you to do. Before you go on and join these stitches, I'd like you to do a slip stitch into this space here. That just kind of prevents an unwanted hole. And in the pattern, I describe that as a, let me get sorted here. I describe that as a space that is behind the hook. Alright, so if we look at our work, we've been coming along here. This next space behind the hook, that's where we go into with a slip stitch. Alright, so that tightens that up. Another way of thinking about it is it's the space that's sitting in the square that's diagonal to the one you're working on. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're ready to turn the corner, and since we're moving on to another square, we find that first chain stitch of the next square and start our grab chain there. And just continue on each back loop, joining in. And of course these are the 2 double crochets that go in this corner. Just grabbing and working into that chain 2 space. And then 1 double crochet in each stitch across like we did before. Alright. You get the idea, and just continue along, ending with, when you get to this corner, of course, the 2 grab double crochets, grab chain, come up, and you're just ending again in this space here, and then if you were going on, you would add another square just like you did this one. So just remember that every other square in this row from now on will be worked just like we've done this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up and this row. Then I'll do the return row, which will put me here. And then after that's done, the only other thing to do is to finish off this edge here, which is basically just like a return row, except going along this edge here instead, ending with a chain 2 slip stitch into the next stitch. Alright, so I'll go ahead and finish that up for you, this seam and all the way around, and then we'll go on to the border. And that's my little sample finished. I just want to emphasize that you keep going until you get all your rows of squares before you come along and finish this left edge. That's the very last thing to do after you've built up all your rows. So sorry, that might have been a little bit confusing on this sample. Okay, so let's move on to the border. And if we take a closer look at the border, you can see that there is kind of a chain going along the edge here, and that happens because of a stitch I'm about to show you. So once I've shown you this stitch, the rest is pretty straightforward. You basically doing on the second round after that special stitch, you're doing popcorns in every other stitch with 2 chains between, and finishing off with just chain 2 in each chain 2 space. To get the corners to lay flat, I've just done 3 popcorns in a row without skipping anything in the corners, and doing 3 single crochets in those spaces between those. So that's really the only thing I'd really like to point out, but let's go on and I'll just show you this special stitch to do. And I'm calling this special stitch, it's basically just a single crochet, and it's going to be sort of like a back post single crochet, but done just very slightly differently. I've not seen this anywhere before, so I don't really know what it's called. If you know what it is, please write in and let me know. Okay, so we have not broken the yarn after we've done our last square. So let's start the first round of the border with a chain 1, and let's start with this special stitch I'm talking about. Alright, this back single crochet starts by going behind the work, and you're going underneath the next V from back to front, find the next V, go through it to the back. Yarn over and pull the yarn through. You've got 2 loops on the hook. Finish as for a single crochet. You continue by going from the back through the same V you just used before in that previous stitch. Going through there from back to front and then from front to back. Single crochet. Alright, that's really all there is to it. The main thing is just to remember you're going through the same stitch the first time, coming through on a new stitch. Another way of thinking about this is we're putting a single crochet just above a double crochet. So if we're going through here, that's the right side of the double crochet, coming around the front of the double crochet, out the back again to make that single crochet. So as you can see, it's sort of getting that sort of chain happening along the edge, and these single crochets will be what you work in on round 2. Alright, so I'm going to continue. There's just one more thing to do when we get to an intersection, so let me work my way there. Just doing the very last one over that last double crochet on this side, and that's a bit tricky going through that next V there. On this particular stitch I might take this in 2 bites. There we go. Went through. Okay. Okay, so now that we're at the intersection, we just do a normal back post single crochet around this single crochet that was between the 2 squares. So just go find that next space, come from the back, come over that single crochet, come to the next space, back to the back, and just work a back post single crochet around there, and then you continue on over the next double crochet. So find this V here to come through, go back out in the next one, and away you go for the rest of those double crochets. Alright, and when you get to the corners, just do 3 normal single crochets in that chain 2 space. So thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. If there's still something you don't understand, please write in or join my group on Facebook. See the description for the link to that. And I should also say one more thing, that this blanket looks a lot better if you block it. And since I used acrylic yarn for this project, all I did was pin it out and used a garment steamer to lightly steam it. I didn't actually touch the yarn with the steamer, just gently held it over, gave it a real good steam, let it sit until it dried, and away you go. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.